Smart 24, driving business.
Thank you so much for watching Smart 24 TV, and we drive your business. And of course, you can follow us on our social media handles. The topic is up there. We're talking about the US Africa Summit and what it has for Africa and Uganda in particular. Now, remember to also watch us live on our YouTube live stream. Those of you who are online, you can right now tune in at Smart 24 TV Live to follow the updates. I'm still talking to Mr. Alex Muhwezi, and we've of course talked about some of the fruits that could come from this summit, and one of them has been mentioned as us actually getting to improve our exportation, especially of agricultural products. I would like us to begin right there, Mr. Muhwezi. I see the figures are really good, over 34 million US dollars being exported. But what we are exporting really is raw coffee. We're exporting raw coffee, raw minerals. Everything is raw at most. At least if we do the processing, it's primary processing. We never go to secondary and tertiary processing stages. And even I made research on our pharmaceutical industries and realized, much as we're doing tertiary and secondary processing, we are importing the actives. In other words, we import the drug component and the other things that go with the drug, and we do the mixing and release the drug. Meaning, yes, we are succeeding in manufacturing and exportation, but we are not doing the whole thing. We are not trying to actually manufacture from the ground and produce the product as it should be. So, what do you think can be done for us to see our products to the level of, for example, what Kenya is exporting and what other African countries are exporting elsewhere in the world?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anthony, for that question. And to our viewers, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning to listen to us. This situation you have painted for us, Anthony, is not happening in an island. There are critical factors that are contributing to this situation that need to be attended to and addressed. One of them, every time you think of exportation, you need to first of all think about where is the market. Where is the market? What is this type of market? How do I access this market? Those are key fundamental questions to address. Once, for example, you have also identified what is the size of this market that I am targeting. So know your target market. What does this market want? What does this market want? Do you have the capacity to meet the need for this market? So these are questions that we need to address. We need to address the issue of the market. And that is why you see there are various efforts by government and different stakeholders to build this market. When you hear of a presidential visit or trip, Vietnam, the president is not going for holiday. He is not going for a tour. He has gone to market Uganda. He has gone to open way for Ugandans. He has gone to develop a market for Ugandans. When you hear of us speaking of the East African community, what are we trying to do? Building a market, expanding the market. When you hear of the African free trade area, Africa Continental Free Trade Area. What is this about? This is market. When you hear of integration arrangements, associating arrangements, for example, ECOWAS, all of these efforts are geared towards building a market. It is true there's an internal market, but this internal market is not big enough to accommodate all your production if you go into full production. So number one, address the issue of the market. Do we have a market? My answer is yes. The market is there. Number two, do we know what the market needs? I think there is work to be done in that aspect to understand the markets that we are targeting, what they need. Do we have access means to these markets? I think efforts have a number of interventions have been put in place. For example, the European Union has opened the market for African commodities, tariff-free, as long as you are not exporting their arms. So that market is there. You know the market under AGOA. Recently, China also opened up for exports for African products, as long as you are not exporting their arms. So the market is there. The different nations around the world, the different economic blocs around the world are in support of Africa. So the market is there, and a number of engagements and formal agreements are in place to support access to these markets. So for example, Africans, specifically Ugandans, we can access the American market under AGOA. We can access the European market under the goods but no arms policy. We can access the China market, but we can also access the African market. It is also in place. For example, the East African market. So the market is in place. Once the market is in place, then you must be able to produce to supply this market. Number one, the raw materials are in place. We have the coffee. Farmers, Ugandans have been mobilized to grow coffee, and actually Ugandans have grown coffee. We have minerals in this country. They will tell you, research will tell you, there was an aerial geographical view conducted across this country to ascertain the level of different minerals in this country. And the study revealed very useful information in terms of the capacities that we have in minerals. So we have minerals. For example, there's a lot of gold in Karamoja. There's gold in Mubende. We have very unique and needed minerals in this country. And a number of our people are involved in tapping into these resources. So the minerals are in place. So what is the challenge now? To produce, there are factors you need. Factor number one is land. We have the land is in place. Factor number two is capital. That's where the challenge is. Access to low cost capital to catalyze production, to catalyze industrialization. That's where the challenge is. So we need to tackle the issue of access to low cost capital. The government talks of capitalizing UDB, capitalizing UDC to support the industrialization agenda. Yes, you have capitalized the UDC, you have capitalized UDB, Is this money accessible by an ordinary Ugandan with a very commercial idea to implement? So improve the cost, address the cost, but also address accessibility. So that's issue number one that we need to address if we are to add value to our raw materials and export them as processed products. Now, when you export coffee processed, you have kept money here. But if you export it raw, you have exported jobs, you have exported a lot of value which you have not earned from. Because processing has it's a very deep supply chain that has value at different points. So the moment you are exporting raw coffee, you are losing a lot of value. So we need to tackle the issue, address the issue of access to capital, the cost of capital, to support acquisition of relevant technology to support this processing. Number two, competent manpower. We need to address the issue of skills. Do we have adequate, energized, and motivated, skilled manpower to support our industrialization agenda? What education are we extending to our citizens? Is this the education aligned to our need as a country? Education is meant to address societal challenges. So is our education system today aligned to our industrialization agenda? So we need to address those gaps in our education system. It's not enough to have a pool of educated people. It is very critical for us as a country to have a pool of knowledgeable and competent people in specific sectors. For example, do we have agrochemists? Do we have agro-engineers to support this processing that we're talking about? So this is where there's a gap, and this is something that needs to be addressed. One of the ways in addressing it is we need to review our curriculum. We need to review the type of knowledge that we are extending to our young people in schools. Then can we go into mechanisms of technology transfer? Now, under technology transfer, that's where foreign direct investment is very critical. Can we attract investors, come into Uganda, invest money into these key sectors that are catalysts for our economic development, but on condition that you train our people. You train our people, and after a period of time, a review is conducted, and then you actually move. But one of the key aspects is to have this technology transferred to our people, so that even if you as a foreign investor decided to leave today, this investment is sustainable. There's a team of people that has acquired the skill, knowledge, and understanding to keep this investment going. So we need to address the issue of human capital. We need to address the issue of access to capital. Then we also have we have challenges with governance. We need to tackle the issue of corruption. Address the issue of corruption. How easy is it for you to register a company in this country without using underhand methods? How is it easy for you to get an environmental license to commence operations? Do we have an enabling environment for our business, our investors to operate? So that's an area that needs to be addressed. This is a governance issue that needs to be addressed. And then we also need to address the issue of human rights in this country. Seriously, because any oversight, any misachievement in this area reflects badly on us globally. You need to be aware, my friend Anthony, that the investment community is very sensitive to peace, to insecurity, to stability. It's very, very sensitive. So we need to project ourselves, we need to project our country as a very safe country to do business, as a country that respects the law, as a country that is governed by rule of law. And that is very, very key if we attract foreign direct investment. And through this, we're able to have technology transfer and improve and support our industrialization agenda. I'm very sure once this is addressed, some of these issues, once they are addressed, issues of access to low-cost capital, human capital strengthening, addressed issues of corruption and the challenges around governance, address issues of have a policy framework that supports investment in this country, supporting both foreign and local investment. I'm sure we should be able to address the challenge of exporting raw unprocessed products to our different markets.
Thank you. Mr. Mwezi, you mentioned a very pertinent issue here when you talk about capital. Capital in Uganda has become a very big issue. You find young people with brilliant ideas. They tell you, I can do this and this, and say, what's the problem? I don't have capital. I don't know where to start from. And because of this government, like we discussed last time, came up with programs, the PDM, the Youth Livelihood Program, and so many other programs that have come up to support the businesses young people are doing and try to fuel them via providing capital. Especially now that banks have very high interest rates, you cannot start a business with such a mode of raising capital. And now, to address this issue, you as a person who has been in the banking sector and in business, how do we address really the issue of capital? Because much as, yes, the programs have come, but we've seen government programs in the past in the same formulations with the same idea of providing capital and at a simple interest where people can actually be able to pay back, but they have not still addressed the problem. What have other countries done different from us? Because when you look at the US, for example, which we are looking at now, students come out of university with the job they are doing. They're already doing something when they're studying, and it's actually part of their training to be doing a job as you're studying or practicing your profession. But then when they come out, of course, they do have a heavy student's debt, which they pay over a very long time. But at least everyone goes to school for that fact. So how have they addressed issues concerning getting to raise capital, getting to have people have a cash flow in their businesses, and as well as getting started in terms of entrepreneurship?
Okay, thank you so much, Anthony, for that question. Yes, I am aware that there have been various interventions by government to address the issue of access to capital. We have had the Youth Fund. There is the Women Fund. Today we are speaking of the parish development model, and within that model, there are also a number of funds put in place to make it possible for our enterprising people to access capital. Then, of course, we have commercial banks, we have the microfinance institutions, then we have circles. You've heard of government putting money into UDB.
Yeah.
Government is going to capitalize Uganda Development Corporation by over $1 trillion. Government put money into Uganda, into Microfinance Support Center to support enterprises. So all these efforts are geared towards addressing the issue of access to capital. So I want to appeal to those who are listening to us. Visit these different institutions, acquire knowledge about these different funds, and find out how you can take advantage of these funds, because these funds are in place. So that is number one. Number two, funds have been put in place, but as government, have we put an infrastructure in place to build capacity for these enterprising Ugandans, capacity to want to access credit, but number two, to manage credit, because that's where the challenge is. These funds, in some instances, they are politicized. And the perception around some of these funds is that this is an appreciation from government, specifically from the NRM party, for having voted very well. So someone comes up with a project, and that project is structured in such a way that it fulfills the requirements for the funding arrangement. However, someone knows that they are not going to do what they have written that they are going to do. They are only going to access this money and go and do other different things, because according to them, this is an appreciation from government. So that perception issue needs to be dealt with. The other thing, Anthony, is when you are coming up with these funds, each of these funds has a significant what I would call key stakeholders. For example, when you are coming up with a youth fund, how have you involved the key youth stakeholders, the youth leaders, when you're coming up with this fund? Have you adequately ensured involvement of these stakeholders so that they own this fund? Who is managing this fund? The moment the stakeholders, one, are not fully engaged about this fund, two, you don't keep them close to this fund, you don't keep them informed and engaged about this fund, you have problems with its success. So for me, these are key questions that we come up with funds, with projects, and then we have not addressed these gaps. You have not properly organized these funds. The other question I would ask myself, as a country, what is our strategic objective as a country? You always hear of government officials talking about Vision 2040. You hear of our government officials talking about the National Development Plan 1, Plan 2, Plan 3. These are key, these are very good documents, but who knows them? Are they only in the boardroom of the policymakers? Are these only in parliament? Have you ensured adequate involvement by Ugandans in generating these strategic objectives, so that at whatever level each of us is engaged, these are our objectives as a country. So for me, these are some of the challenges that have hampered the successful implementation of some of these funds. So these issues need to be addressed, they need to be tackled to ensure successful implementation of these funds.
Yeah.
But funds are in place, issues, gaps need to be addressed, but we also need to highlight that not all hope is lost. Funding can still be sourced. If you cannot go to a commercial bank, you can go to a SACCO, you can go to a microfinance institution. All these avenues are in place. You can form a joint venture. Anthony, you may have an idea, very brilliant idea, which has been commercially assessed and tested and proven to be effective and earning once implemented. You have the idea, someone has the money. So can you do a joint venture with this person? He provides funding for you, have the idea, implement the idea, share the proceeds once the idea has been successfully implemented. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. We're going to take a very last break, and when we return, Mr. Mwezi, you've mentioned education, and I think also now we can mention the health sector. You have innovation in Uganda, and some of the other gaps that have still been left in order for us to tap into, for example, markets like the US, but then also our local or our regional integration as Africa, as East Africa. How important is it in the drive for us to have a better exportation than more importation? And so we will return with that and more. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still talking about some of the highlights from the Africa-US Summit and what African countries, in particular Uganda's case, what we can do in order for us to promote our regional and, of course, the continental integration, and, of course, having a common market and pushing for more exportation than importation. My name is Anthony, and you're still watching Smart 24 TV. We drive your business.
Smart 24, driving business.